Hi guys, it's Sam from Elvis Duran on the Morning Show, and welcome to another episode of CEO Unplugged. Today we are CEOing Raise, and today I have Jay Klauminzer, who runs the entire show. Hi, Jay.
Hi, good
morning.
morning.
How you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of questions because you have a multi-layered business going on.
Yes, that is correct.
So give us like the highlight reel. What can you explain about your company? What is Raise?
Yeah, it's really easy. It's an app that lets customers save money at their favorite brands. It's really that simple.
Seems like a total no-brainer.
Yeah, and so we have over 4,000 of your favorite brands on our site or our app. And it's really simple. You come in, you look for the brand you want, and you buy it. And what you get is a gift card that lets you purchase at any of the stores that you go to on a daily basis.
Okay, so you kind of work as a middleman, but unlike most middlemen, you actually make humans' lives easier.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's what it does. So, okay, my first interaction on your website, I go there. What do I do? First, I shop at, what's one of your brands up there?
Lowe's is an example.
Lowe's, okay.
Yeah, you can either type in Lowe's or browse. So we have it by category.
Love that.
You click on it and you decide how much you want to spend. So if it's a simple project, it's $50. You find a $50 card. If it's going to be more expensive, you do that. You click to buy, register, and check out. And within a few seconds, you've got a card ready to go.
This is so easy. It's so easy that I'm like, well, that's the catch. But we know there's not one.
There's not.
So how is it you got started? Because a lot of CEOs we have come in here, this is their first hurrah when it comes to something like this. But you have a very rich history of important work.
Yeah. Well, we can debate how important it was. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been, I'm dating myself, about 20 years in the professional workforce. And I started in consulting. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I figured that was a chance for me to learn lots of different things and see different industries. And so that's what I call chapter one. It's where I figured out how to learn business and what I liked.
Gotcha.
And it was there I realized that I just had a passion for consumer work. That was all the work I did because it was so tangible. Any work that you did and you implemented, the customer saw it right away. So that was chapter one. And at some point I realized that I needed to learn how to run a business, not just solve problems in a business.
That sounds really difficult, but sure, seems like a logical next step.
And so that's when I made the jump to Groupon in early 2011, which was a crazy time. Pre-going public, it was just figuring out.
Oh, wow.
No tools, no process. Let's just figure it out on the fly. And it was so fun. It was like my first foray into doing things and running big teams and having a revenue responsibility. So that's where I learned to kind of run a business.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And then after that, what light bulb went off in your head that you were like, you know what? I'm going to bring this somewhere else, the next step.
I got advice from a very trusted mentor that he was actually talking about recruiting a CEO. And he's like, here's how you need to think about your career. You want to be a CEO one day, right? I was like, yeah, that seems like a natural progression.
Totally.
And he said, get as high as you can, as fast as you can at a company. And when there's somebody between you and the CEO that's not going anywhere, it's time to leave because you're done learning.
Whoa. Very succinct and truth.
Yeah.
Piece of advice.
Yeah, it was. And so I actually got to that point at Groupon. I was running our local business in North America, and I was loving it. Don't get me wrong. I love the company, loved everybody I worked with, but it got to the point where I'm like, I think I'm ready for something new.
Wow.
And so fast forward to DoorDash. There's actually a funny story about DoorDash. So I'm interviewing. And I get to my last interview, and Christopher Payne, who's the COO, we were talking. He's like, you and I have Eric Lefkowski in common. He was one of the founders at Groupon. And he's telling me the story. And I was like, wait a second. Were you at eBay and you told Eric a story about how there was somebody between you and the CEO not going anywhere and therefore you needed to look? He's like, yes, that was me. And so it was like such a small world connection moment, almost serendipitous, that it was time to join DoorDash. And so that's how I made it there.
I feel like that would have been the kind of moment where both of you raise one index finger and touch and there's a little spark.
I kind of felt like that.
This is a divine intervention.
Yeah.
So, you've already kind of listed a couple, but who would you say has been your biggest influence for coming here?
Well, actually a couple. I think the one I mentioned around when you're ready to be CEO, Christopher Payne, who I mentioned at DoorDash, the best operator I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
He taught me so much about what it takes to run a company. And then separately, the founder of Raise, George Boussis, he's such a storyteller. He had such vision behind the company. And, I was in a good spot at DoorDash, and George is the one that convinced me to make the leap.
Oh, he found you. He fished for you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's high praise.
Humbling at times. But yeah.
Good. That sounds healthy,
Yeah.
but still high praise.
Yeah.
So apart from when there's someone sandwiched between you and the top, would you say there's another piece of advice that really resonated with you throughout your career that you'd want to impart onto other CEOs?
The funny thing is when you're in consulting, you do like 100% of the work. Like you have to look at every different angle and think about every scenario. And the biggest thing I learned when I left consulting to actually go run a business is that's way too much. Like if you do that all the time and you're running a business, you'll never get anything done.
Gotcha.
And so my biggest learning, which I've carried forward, is just like have a get stuff done mentality. And I tell new members on my team, I'm like, guys, once we have 60% of the answer and we're confident that that's it, let's just go. Because we'll get so much more done. And then the mistakes we make along the way, we'll catch them sooner than if we were just overanalyzing everything. So that's how you move fast, especially in a startup world.
I like that. It's not this, a lot of people have the it must be perfect mentality, but it could in a certain amount of time actually keep you from progressing further on that. I like that because that is definitely how I do my work. I feel like my work is reflected in my hair. It's just kind of all over the place, but somehow it pans out all the time. So what separates you guys? What makes you different from other money-saving apps out there?
I think there's a couple things. For consumers, it's about the selection. I mean, we have over 4,000 brands. You can use our instant product in 300,000 stores in the U.S. So we've got range and selection.
Yeah.
And for merchants, the biggest thing for them is, one, we have an audience, but two, without going too into the details on marketing attribution and some complexities there, they can actually track if it works, right? They buy a product on Raise, they know that they bought it there. They can actually, without any new work, see that it was redeemed and which store it was redeemed and what they bought. So for retailers, it's a fully trackable acquisition tool. Yeah,
so it works for both ends, really. Yeah. There's really no reason for anyone not to be a part of this.
I would agree with that, for sure.
Love that. And what about progress? Do you have a plan for the next 3 years, or do you have a projection, like the next big thing you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, the progress we make, our core product for consumers, save money everywhere you shop, is really straightforward. Like we're not going to deviate from that. Our biggest focus this year is about making it easier, making it super simple. And a couple of years ago, if you wanted to spend $670 somewhere, you may have to come and buy a $500 card, a $100 card, a $50 card, so that they all added up. And that's friction. And so that's just one example of the friction we're trying to take out. And so now we have a product where you can just type in $670 and instantly you have a code to use. And if you're at a store that has a little handheld scanner, you just scan the code and you're out. And it's super easy. So we're looking at the entire life cycle of a consumer and just making it easier for them to use.
Okay. All right. I like this. Yeah. As someone who likes to do the bare minimum, it kind of sounds really perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So what would you say is your management style? Like now you're not just taking care of you. You've got a whole little family of people under you.
Yeah. When I started my career, I was much more of a micromanager, and I learned early on with my teams that that's horrible, right? You have to let go and realize that just because they're not doing it the way you would do it, it's okay. And so it's hard.
Yeah, especially in your position.
Yeah. But it's evolved over time to be much more Socratic, where it's like, we have a team that we trust, and I let them come up with the answer. My job is to give them guidance and provide strategy, then just get out of the way.
Okay.
And, one way I do that, I call it Zyzo. I zoom in, zoom out. And so there'll be a topic where I'll zoom super deep and get really far in the weeds. Yeah. And if the answers are right and it's well thought out, then I pull back out and let them run on their way. And if it's not, then I worry that we need to go deeper.
That's fair enough. I call that the Jewish mother when I go around having to double check everything. Do you have any advice for someone who's an earlier version of you? We have a lot of people aspiring to CEO out there. What do you want to tell them?
I think the biggest thing, and I give this advice to a lot of people, is always have a growth mindset. And if you have what that means is you always want to be learning, find something new, and ask for feedback, and recognize that feedback is really a gift. And I'm stealing from Oprah there, but that it's not somebody attacking you when they give you feedback. They genuinely want you to get better and just have a growth mindset. And so that's why if we were to double click on each of those stages of my career, I get to a point where I feel like I've learned a role and I'm kind of topped out at my learning curve, and then I find a new role. Because I'm always continuing to grow. And if, as I wove that story together earlier, it's about learning what I wanted to do. It's about learning how to run a business. It's about understanding recruiting and HR in a different role. And so it's just continuously building out your skill set, because the role of CEO, as I've told people before, it's only 60% of what I thought it was. And that's running a business.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's another 40% of things you don't think about, like the conversation you and I are having, figuring out where to recruit your next CTO from. There's just all sorts of things that had I not had those 20 years of experience prior, I wouldn't have been ready.
And it kind of sounds like every experience makes you more prepared for the next.
Absolutely.
It's impossible to go back and be ready when you were in your days 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still fly by the seat of my pants sometimes, but yeah, at least I've got pattern recognition to hopefully make the right decisions.
And that's good advice for everyone, not just CEOs. Like, I'm definitely taking nuggets of information that I will bring to work tomorrow morning.
Good.
So, okay, how do we get to you guys? You're not just a website, you're an app. How can I find you?
Really straightforward. So we're just at raise.com, or in any of the app stores, just search for Raise and we'll pop up and you download the app, quickly register, and you're on your way to saving.
Perfect, Jay. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's been another episode of CEO Unplugged. Go Raise. You should raise right now. Go Raise.
For sure.